Welcome back to Wellness Wave Radio. Thanks for tuning in this morning to ride the wave with us. Each week our goal is to give you at least one suggestion that will make your life a little better. My name is Phil George. I'm a clinical biochemist, certified personal trainer, and a health coach. Please remember, everything we discuss on the show is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as medical advice. Always seek the guidance of your medical professional. Today's show is going to be on sleep. But before I do that, again, the whole point of the shows I do is to give you like one suggestion, hopefully a lot more than one suggestion, but at least one. So I'm going to give you a big one because what happens as you get older, you develop something called, they call it now inflammaging, which just means what happens, you get more and more what they call chronic or systemic inflammation as you age. And one of the most common things for that people have is they have, their fingers will start getting stiffer. They can't bend them all the time. You'll have something called trigger finger, which basically your fingers like this. And this is really, really common. Actually, the first thing to go in terms of the inflammation is usually the thumb. You'll get a lot of arthritis in your thumb. And this is called osteoarthritis. So osteoarthritis is basically, a kind of arthritis of the bones with the synovial fluid in the joints here starts drying up. And it's kind of like, they used to call it bone on bone, but in this case, it's going to be, tendon on tendon and, bone on bone. Just isn't working very well. Common problem. This is actually a problem that I had. I'd wake up in the morning and my fingers, I was stuck. I'd have to literally, undo my hand. They were so stuck. Now, I've been using ginger and turmeric for years orally, so I start really ramping it up if I start getting a lot of inflammation or in any of my joints. And it worked for a while, and it made it better. But I don't like taking pills that much. So what I did is I started taking these chewies. So I ordered these ginger chewies and turmeric chewies, so these two together. And I took them together, and I noticed a big difference in terms of pretty much all of the arthritis in my hands went away. Like right now, I got zero. I can do all the stuff. There's nothing locking up there or anything else. So I did this, and actually I got a call. I got a TV show on WCRN. By the way, email me, philgeorge@charter.net, if you want where I get these chewies from. Because any kind of supplements, they're really tricky. Most of them are made in China and India. You have no idea what's in that stuff. I have a very trusted supplier that I use for myself, my family, and my clients. So email me if you want. I'll send you over the chewies that I do. Long story short, this woman called in, and I mentioned that to her, and basically she ordered them, and I said, do me a favor, just call back in a couple of weeks and see what's going on. A couple of weeks go by, and she winds up calling back. Coincidentally, I had Dr. Eddie Arus, who's a vascular surgeon from the Vascular Care Group, on the show. We're doing an interview, and we're taking calls, and so she called in. And one of the things, actually, let me just back up even more. So I'm a biochemist, so I want to know what's called mechanism of action. Why is it that the chewies work better than they're swallowing it? And then it occurred to me, what happens is, like if you have a heart attack, what they'll do is they'll give you something called nitroglycerin. And either they'll give it to you, in an injection, or they'll put it under your tongue. That's called sublingual. So anything you put under your tongue, it gets absorbed directly into the bloodstream. If you take it orally, like a pill, it has to go through your whole digestive system, to your liver, everything else. So it's a lot slower process and a lot less efficient process than you putting it right under your tongue. You also have something lining your your mouth called the mucosa. And what it does is, so with these chewies, you chew on them, and it gets released into the mucosa and then sublingually, and it goes right into the bloodstream. So that's the reason why the chewies work a lot better than taking the pills. And Dr. Roos was sitting, right next to me. And I said, well, what do you think, Dr. Roos? Absolutely. He says that sublingual stuff works, going right into it. So this woman, she called back into the show, and she said, it's a miracle. Literally, I'm quoting her. It's a miracle. She said, my pain is so much better and everything else. So anybody out there, you got a lot of pain, knee pain, hip pain, whatever, any kind of pain at all, this works really, really well. that brings me to point number 2. So I was working with a with a client, and working on some of his stuff. And as passing, he said, "Oh, by the way, I noticed that my wife, sometimes her eyes appear to get a little bit yellow. It's something called a sclera, which is the white part of your eye. It's called a sclera, and it's going yellow in and out." And I said, "Whoa!" I said, "That's something called jaundice." Now, what jaundice is, you can also see it on your skin turns yellow, okay, but the eye specifically. So I started asking him some questions. I said, "Let me ask you a question. Does she take a lot of Tylenol?" He goes, "Yeah, takes a lot of Tylenol." When I worked in the hospital, at least once a month, we'd have somebody come in with what they call Tylenol overdose, Tylenol toxicity. If you take too much Tylenol, it gets into your liver and it damages your liver. So, not to get too technical in the biochemistry, but what happens is we have red cells. The red cells go all over your body, and your spleen. What happens? Your red cells only last 120 days. So what happens? It goes through your spleen. The spleen, because the coating on the outside of the red cells, it gets thinner and thinner, and as it goes through the spleen, it'll rupture. And what happens? And inside, and the red cells will release the the hemoglobin. The hemoglobin breaks down to something called bilirubin. So again, a little technical here. So the bilirubin then goes into the liver, and it has to be what they call conjugated. Fancy word, conjugated just means it has to be bound to something. In order to get that bilirubin out of your body, it has to be bound to something else. And when I did tests when I worked in the lab, there's something called conjugated and unconjugated bilirubin, direct or indirect. So the direct bilirubin basically is conjugated. Once it's conjugated, then it gets out of the liver, and you can just poop it out. That's fine. But if your liver's damaged by the Tylenol or something else, or you drink too much, what'll happen is the liver's not working correctly. So what'll happen is it stays in the body. So this bilirubin stays in the body. The bilirubin then creates this yellow hue in your skin and in your eyes. So I said to him, I said, you really should see a doctor, because this is not something you want to mess around with. I mean, you could have cirrhosis of the liver or damage of the liver. Is a very serious condition. He says, "Well, it's going to take me like a zillion years to get to see a doctor." I said, "Okay, fine." So what I said to him, "Give me your email." I got his email address. I said, "I'm going to shoot you an email. These are all the blood tests you want done to see how well your liver is working, called liver enzymes, and there's other tests too." So then what would happen, and then if we can see if that's the problem, how badly is our liver damaged. And if it's damaged too much, then you can do basically like maybe not a CAT scan, but an MRI or an ultrasound. So all they do is they put this. Remember, they put this wave into the liver, bounces back, and they can see what the liver looks like, and that's how they diagnose liver disease. Another big problem now is something called a non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. A lot of people have that. So these are tests you should have done. And again, this is my field. I'm a clinical biochemist. I worked in hospitals. I trained medical students on lab procedures. So this is my wheelhouse. This is what I know best, is what to do with that. So that's one thing. So instead of taking all these NSAIDs like acetaminophen and Tylenol and everything else, just take the ginger and the turmeric. There's really I give this to my wife and myself. So I take it 3 times a day. I take the ginger chewy along with the turmeric. I'll take that in the morning. Then I'll take one in the afternoon. Then I'll take one before I go to bed. It worked miracles for me and for my clients. So again, feel free to email me, philgeorge@charter.net. What do you got to lose? The only word of caution: the ginger and the turmeric can cause a little bit of an increase, in clotting time. So if you're on an anti-clotting agent like curcumin, or not curcumin, any of those clotting agents, what you want to do, you want to be a little careful. Again, this is not medical advice. Everybody's different. Check with your doctor. Maybe, again, if you can get an appointment with a doctor. A lot of times now you have these, you can actually email the doctor and ask them, this crazy guy, crazy biochemist on TV said that we should be maybe taking this curcumin and turmeric, and see what he says. So again, not medical advice, but give it to my family. I take it. It worked miracles for me. It worked miracles for my clients. So any kind of aches and pains, this is the way to go. And again, kind of like gum, you just chew it 3 times a day. A lot of people take it more than 3 times a day. I'm not telling you to do that. I don't know if there's any side effects to that, but 3 times a day, I think is pretty safe in terms of that. The other thing to be careful of with Tylenol, the generic name for Tylenol is acetaminophen. So a lot of people don't know that. So what they'll do is, in Tylenol is in everything. It's in cough formulas, it's in sleep formulas, it's everywhere. But what they'll do, they'll see Tylenol, they'll take the jar of Tylenol, it says Tylenol on it, they'll take that. And on the jar of Tylenol, it should say, don't take more than this amount per day, otherwise you're going to damage your liver. They say, fine, you're taking the max of the Tylenol, but you don't realize in the cough syrup you have or sleep thing you have, that's acetaminophen. That is Tylenol. It's the same thing. So that's how people wind up overdosing on this stuff, because they don't realize that acetaminophen is the same as Tylenol. And again, at least once a month, when I worked in the hospital, we get somebody in the emergency room would wind up with Tylenol toxicity. So a word of caution on that. The other thing I want to mention is I've teamed up with Dr. Emily Cabrera. She's been on the show a few times. And we have a clinic now right on Burncoat Street called Dual Mind Psychiatry. So we're doing a lot of really good things down there. We have what they call a transcranial photobiomodulation. I had it on the show before. Goes on your head. They use this in all professional athletes now. The Bruins use it for concussions or TBIs, but they also found it works really, really well for Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. I got tons and tons of studies on this. We have a lot of stuff. We have something called the vagal nerve stimulator. It goes over here, and what it does is it helps calm you down, and it can make you focus better. There's a lot of different stuff. So we're the only clinic, I think, in Massachusetts that's offering this right now. And so if you want, we'll give you a free complimentary intro. Great clinic. Dr. Emily, she does, psychiatric stuff too. So we teamed up with this. We have a lot of other good, interesting things in there. We have red light panels in there. We're going to look about bringing in a sauna, a really healthy sauna, which is really healthy for you. That's a whole other show. But this is cutting edge stuff, guys. So if you or a loved one is like dealing with, brain fog, your brain's not working correctly. Now, I've had this for the last 10 to 20 years. I had a show on it where I actually had it on one of my Beanie Babies here, and we showed the way it works. It works great. And again, Dr. Emily, this is what she does. She'll tell you my cognition's okay. And I'm going to be 80 years old this year. So, I mean, my brain's still working. But I've done this for years, so I'm kind of the guinea pig. But this is not just me. They run clinics with this stuff, with Alzheimer's, dementia. So instead of just, hiring a home health aide or something like that, come in, check it out. Again, there's a way basically to improve your cognition. And you know what? Even if you don't have any kind of brain fog or anything else, you just want to perform optimally, throw this on your head. It's 20 minutes, one and done, vagal nerve stimulation. We have all kinds of stuff going on at this clinic. So you can come on down and check it out. So that's half the show almost gone. So let's get into sleep. Now, one of the things that's non-negotiable for me is sleep. I mean, I guard my sleep. In fact, I don't set an alarm clock. I go to bed at the same time, and I wake up at the same time every day. And I'm very, very careful about that. One of the reasons for this is when you sleep, especially in deep sleep, you have something in your spinal fluid called the glymphatic system, not to be confused with the lymphatic system, a glymph with the G. What happens during deep sleep, let me just back up on sleep. So what happens with sleep is basically you go through, it takes about 90 minutes for each sleep cycle. You have to go through light sleep, or REM sleep, rapid eye movement, which is dream sleep, and then deep sleep. Deep sleep, in my opinion, is the most important because that's what happens. That's when the lymphatic system goes into your brain and clears out the tau tangles and the amyloid plaque. They found out that people that don't get the correct amount of sleep, a lot of bad things happen to you. One thing is you're going to build up all of that gunk in your brain, tau tangles, amyloid plaque. That's one of the signs of Alzheimer's and dementia. So that's where you want the correct amount of sleep. Not many people get the correct amount of sleep. So what you want to do, again, is you want to try to keep your sleep. It's called a circadian rhythm. We're basically, again, we've been around for millions of years. We've only lived like this for the last 100 years or so. The light bulb was invented only about 100 years ago. So really our body's not used to this yet. The way it works, again, we're basically smart monkeys. So we're tied to the sun and the moon. This is circadian rhythm. So what's supposed to happen when you wake up in the morning, if you can get sun within the first 20 minutes of waking up, that sets your circadian rhythm. It means it lets you know to shut down your melatonin, which is the sleep hormone in your brain. Shuts it down, release cortisol, wake up, get up, stop walking around. And then what happens? The sun, when it first comes up in the morning, it's mostly blue light. Okay, the blue light tells you shut down the melatonin and increase the cortisol because you're going to get up and chase after the dinosaur. Then as the sun goes across the sky, it turns more and more to a red hue. As it gets closer and closer, if you ever notice the sun towards the end, the skies are kind of reddish hue. What happens on the red hue, what it does, it goes into your eyes, it goes into your brains and tells your brain release melatonin because it's time to go to sleep. So my friend here, this is my friend Blizzard. So Blizzard, as you can see, he has they call blue light blocking glasses on. So what I do, and I suggest for you, and again, feel free to email me, philgeorge@charter.net, because these are really inexpensive on Amazon. You buy it once, you're done. So, 2 to 3 hours before I go to bed, I'll still be on my screen. What I'll do is I'll put these blue blocking glasses on because it does what it says it does. It blocks the blue light. So what happens, it doesn't shut down your melatonin. Because if you're looking at blue light all the time, what happens, it's shutting down your melatonin, your sleep hormone, and that's bad because you have trouble going to sleep. So what this does, it shuts it down. The other thing on all of your phones, on the iPhone, is something called night shift. And also has it on the Android. You can go in there and change the color on the phone so you're not looking at blue light. But most people aren't going to do that. Plus, you're watching TV. That's blue light here. The other big problem now we have, you guys probably remember when they used to have what they call the incandescent bulbs, those round bulbs with the little filaments in it. They banned those in Massachusetts because they said they were using too much energy. When they put these LEDs in here now. Now the LEDs is pure blue light. The incandescent bulbs had a mixture, like the sun had a little bit of red, a little bit of blue. It didn't mess up our eyes so much. These things mess up our eyes big time. That's why 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed, you want to put on these blue light blocking glasses. Again, feel free to email me, philgeorge@charter.net. I'll send you, a link to Amazon. I'm not tied to any of these companies, but with my clients, these are all the things that you want to do. So the takeaway, again, is you want to go to bed at the same time, get up at the same time. The other big thing, you do not want to eat within 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed. I'd say minimum 2, 3 or more, because what happens is this. When you eat, the blood has to go to your stomach to digest the food. When it goes to your stomach, it's coming out of your brain. So when you go to sleep, you're going to have problems sleeping because all the blood's in your stomach and it's not going into your brain to kind of get you into that sleep mode. The other big problem, again, sleeping with that, a lot of people have what they call acid reflux, where it goes up into your stomach. So think about this. In order to process food, you have to secrete a lot of stomach acid. There's parts of digestion. The first part is the chewing, the machination. Then it has to go down to your esophagus, into your stomach. Then the stomach, what it does is it breaks the food up with acid. Actually, our stomach acid is more acidic than a wolf's. So we need that acidic acid to break it up. But you have something called a sphincter, okay, between your esophagus and and your stomach, and it looks like this. It closes like this because you don't want stomach going back up there. But what happens? A lot of people, if the sphincter is not working correctly, the stomach acid goes back up into your esophagus, and that's where you wind up, having the acid reflux, and that's a big problem for a lot of people. It makes it even worse if you're eating and you're going to bed and you're lying down. Again, instead of gravity keeping everything down in your stomach, it's going to come back up again. So for a lot of reasons, you do not want to eat 2 to 3 hours 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed. Okay, so that's another takeaway. The other thing, what I recommend, I should have brought it with me. You guys have seen these sleep masks you wear. You can email me again, philgeorge@charter.net. I'll send you a sleep mask that I use. Because the other thing, again, we're smart monkeys. When we're out sleeping in the savannah, what happens? The sun's down. Other than the stars, there's no light. Okay, so any kind of light, even if your eyes are closed, if you have any light in your room at all, it still penetrates, and you can still pick it up. That's why a lot of people have trouble going to sleep. They may have lights in their room or something going on. So even a small amount of light is going to mess you up. So you want to get a sleep mask. I have a sleep mask on every night in terms of that, and also have make sure that I get a minimal amount of light in there. The other thing, again, going back to evolutionary biology, what happens when the sun goes down? It gets cooler. So that triggers again our body to think, okay, it's cool, it's time to go to sleep. So you want your room temperature to be like 66, 68 degrees, okay? Because what'll happen? It'll trigger that whole sleep process you're having with that. Again, those are all things that you can do. So you got to keep your the light down. Don't eat a lot of times before you go to bed. The other thing is, obviously, even if you're wearing the blue light blocking glasses, they say don't look at any emails or texts within 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed. Because this is what may happen. You may get something on your text that excites you for some reason. Maybe your boss yelled at you, or your girlfriend yelled at you, or whatever. And you're going to get upset. Once you get upset, your body doesn't know the difference between getting upset from your boss yelling at you to basically a saber-toothed tiger chasing you. You release cortisol. Once you release, remember, your cortisol is the highest in the morning when you first wake up. As you get closer and closer to bedtime, you release the melatonin, and you're also decreasing your cortisol. So anytime you're watching things, watching TV, or maybe you're watching a sporting event, you're watching the Celtics play and you're getting all excited, watching the Celtics, you're releasing cortisol. So you want those last 3 hours, you want to really start having a routine where you're really being nice and calm before you go to bed. That's a really big issue. So the takeaway, if you can, like me, I get up really, really early in the morning. I should have brought it with me. So I'm not seeing the sun. You guys have probably heard of SAD, seasonal affective disorder, where people, as the sun gets changed and they don't get enough sunlight, they get depressed, because again, this goes back to the whole circadian rhythm thing. What happens is what you want to do again is you want to have the correct amount of light. I get up very early in the morning because I go to the gym really early. So I ran across this thing. One of the things you can buy this again on Amazon. It's basically what it is. It's a blue light thing. Kind of, you can't see it, but this blue light coming from here, it comes right into my eyes. So they have something like this. When you wake up in the morning, you could put it maybe, if you go to the computer first thing, put it behind there. It has to be a certain amount of lux, a certain amount of, this lux here is really bright. It's going to go up I say, well, daytime, time to wake up. That's one thing. I chose to go a different route, and again, I can email you this. So what it is these earbuds. When I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do, I go down, press the coffee button, go down, go in, and I put these things in my ear, and it's really white light goes right into my ears. It's the same thing. It triggers me to say, this is morning, time to get up, time to release the cortisol. This stays on for 10 minutes or so, and I use this instead because the sun's not up when I get up, and I don't necessarily want that bright light going to me. So these earbuds I put into my ears. It goes right into my brain and tells me it's time to wake up. So there's a lot of different things you can use. There's a really good book by James Clear called Atomic Habits. So I don't know about you, but when I wake up in the morning, I'm in a fog. I'm waking up, I'm just, so I don't want to have to think about a lot of things. I do the same exact thing. This is James Clear talked about it, habits. You go to habits. Get up, do the same thing every morning. Get up, check my phone. I don't have to think about it. I do the same thing over and over again. So that's one thing you really want to consider is, again, going ahead and getting into very, very, very good habits with this. But I can't emphasize sleep enough. Very few people get enough sleep. So it'll help you prevent against, Alzheimer's, dementia. It'll make your brain work a lot better. It'll help also. They found out that people that have the correct amount of sleep, they age a lot slower than people that don't get the correct amount of sleep. When I worked in the hospital, I used to work a lot of hours. When I worked at Holden Hospital. It's a small hospital, and there was no 11 to 7 shift. So I was a 3 to 11 shift, so I did everything. But since they had no 11 to 7 shift, I was on what they call was on call. Now, what that means is this is before cell phones. I had a beeper, so I had to carry that beeper all the time with me, because if something happened, they had a car accident or somebody came in shock or something, I had to come back to the hospital and go back into the lab and do lab work, like cross-match blood on this person or stuff like that. So I never knew when I was going to sleep. Sometimes I'd work 16, 24 hours in a row, because I never knew what was happening. And then I was at Holden in the wintertime. If there was a snowstorm and people couldn't come in to relieve me, I'd have to sleep in the hospital, and you don't sleep well in the hospital. So my sleep was really, really messed up, and I never thought too much of it. The old adages, and I used to, you want to be the macho man. I used to say, well, I'll sleep when I'm dead, because I saw sleep as a waste of time, which I was obviously pretty ignorant about that. Now I know a lot better. But I had a big wake-up moment. So I happened to be going through this health fair or something, and for some reason there was a health booth. And I went in there, and they took my blood pressure. They said, your blood pressure is through the roof. I was really messing up my body big time by not having enough sleep. I was working all these jobs. I was doing all the other stuff. Again, I was young, 20, 30 years old. You figure, you're invincible at that point, and I would just kept on going. So if you want, feel free to email me, philgeorge@chartered.net. And by the way, I forgot to mention, we do a free one-time consult. So if you want to come in, get to check out my clinic, our clinic, Dr. Emily and I, our clinic in Worcester. Come in, we'll show you all the fancy stuff. Sit down, we'll have a conversation. You can bring your lab work with you. That's what I do. I look at the lab work and let you know what my opinion is on it. And other lab work you should have done, your doctor's probably not going to order. We can do a bunch of different, we can do your blood pressure. We can do all that stuff. Dr. Emily and I are working on eventually drawing blood there too, and having blood work done there. We're working again. We've only been open since April, so it's still working on things and adding new things in. But again, we're really the only clinic that does this in the area. So so with Dr. Emily, she can do IV, she can do all this stuff. She can prescribe meds, she can take you off meds, she can do all the stuff. So her intention wasn't for the dual mind psychiatry. She didn't know. We kind of Emily and I just kind of got together by accident, and then we started going back and forth. So we're a good team, because she does things that I don't do, like the psychiatric stuff, and I do things she doesn't do. I'm a biochemist. So we kind of complement each other really, really well in terms of exactly, what we're doing. So I see the dual minds. We got Emily's mind, we got my mind, dual minds working together. So I think you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting somebody with a skill set, somebody else with a different skill set. And again, the whole point is it's really, really hard to see doctors right now. It's like you got to wait and wait and wait. And then I like to say it's diagnose and adios. They got 12, 15 minutes with you if they're lucky. They're not asking you, are you sleeping well? They're not asking you, are you stressed out? Are you stressed out at work? They don't have time for this. What they really need to do is they need to really just turn around, get you in, get you out, give you a med or something like that. Okay, guys, so we're coming up towards the end of the show. Don't forget, email me, philgeorge@chartered.net. We're starting the new seminars in July at the Greendale Y. So I'll give you more information. I'm doing that with Nurse Kelly. She's been on the show a couple of times also. But again, email me if you have any questions. I do a radio show. We read them on the air. We won't mention your name. So again, we'll be back next week. One of the most common questions I'm asked as a biochemist and health coach is, what are the best supplements to take? Choosing supplements is a tricky business. Many companies have poor quality control and questionable ingredients. In the past, I had to send clients to several different websites. I am now able to offer one-stop shopping for all the quality brands I recommend with no shipping cost and a lower price in most cases. Just email me, philgeorge@charter.net, for a free consult.